For today's build, I'm going to be working on an original concept, something that I've been thinking up for quite a while. This project is going to be an alien parasite, sort of a cross between a squid, a spider, and a tick. Hopefully, if it turns out just right, it's something you might see crawling out of the mud on some distant alien planet. So, as always, with that in mind, let's get started. First off, I began by creating the basic shape. I want this little guy to have a cone for the lower half of his shell with a spider-like head looking out on top. Once I got the proportions looking just right, I split the lower parts of the face into two separate mandibles. Now, I didn't want it to look too much like any one particular species that we have here on Earth, so I gave it an uneven number of eyes. I carved out 4 sockets for the eyes, leaving the 5th larger one for later, once I completed a bit more work on the body. I also sculpted a couple indentations into the mouth so that it looks like the jaws of an insect. I wasn't sure exactly at what angle the parasite would be positioned on the ground, so I moved on to sculpting the terrain before committing to anything. As per usual, I crumpled up some aluminum foil and applied a texture all over the base. After the alien was securely anchored on top, I sculpted 8 legs, or in this case tentacles, and attached them to the body, making sure to decorate them with a whole bunch of spikes. Once that was all looking good, I carved out one more eye socket and added in the extra eye. However, in order to make this alien into a blood-sucking parasite, I needed to add the feelers that would be hanging down from the mouth. These 3 tendrils are what would bury into its victim's flesh when our little buddy here gets hungry. To make that happen, I attached a giant fluid sac onto its back and finessed it into place. At this point, it was 1 in the morning, so I decided to call it a night and work on the rest tomorrow. And, this is what I woke up to. Now, realizing that I am an absolute idiot, I forgot to attach the aluminum foil core to the body. It was literally just Sculpey on top of Sculpey, so of course it wasn't strong enough to hold up its own weight. Essentially, what happened was, when the abdomen fell off, it cracked the base really badly and also managed to roll straight into one of my other sculptures. Honestly, this is one of the most frustrating things I have ever seen happen on any of my projects, but after taking a day off and looking at the damage, I figured this is definitely something I can fix. I began by adding a bunch of additional supports to help center the weight of the abdomen. I applied a bunch of metal paper clips along the middle, way more aluminum foil on both sides, as well as some boulders touching the base of the structure. That will make sure this top-heavy design is anchored down properly. After all that, lesson learned, but now time to make some more progress. I sculpted the rest of the shell and started to add some texture. Next, I rolled up a bunch of clay into small, thin lines and applied those all over the abdomen to make the blood vessels. I built up the terrain around the abdomen just a little bit more to help balance everything out, and once that was complete, I baked the entire sculpture in the oven for 45 minutes. I made sure to do that right away before anything else has the chance to start falling apart. Once it was cool enough to touch, I took some wire cutters and started chipping away at the boulders. The clay tends to break just like the natural texture of a rock, so this honestly works perfectly. I made sure to save all the debris that had fallen off, and glued it down alongside the rest of the ground. It's a quick, simple, and easy way to make hyper-realistic terrain. And after all of that, finally, it's time to start painting. I began with a base coat, black for the terrain, and of course a bright, vibrant neon green just for the alien. Naturally, this took several different layers to cover the entire surface, but once I was happy with it, I went back and applied several different shades. I also used a little bit of a darker shade of green to help bring out some of the details. Next, I painted on some red onto the eyes as well as the feelers, along with a red wash over the entire surface of the body. That technique really helps to tone down that hyper-saturated green that comes with that shade of neon. When you're painting with organic skin tones, this is a really useful technique to help blend everything together. Now, when it comes to the shell, I really want it to be iridescent and reflect different colors depending on the light. So, I painted those elements with a metallic purple and just a little bit of gold to add some extra contrast. Following that, I touched up the blood vessels and applied a darker wash to make it feel a bit more dynamic. After applying a few more highlights and letting the paint dry, I took some spray-on modeling glue and used it to anchor down a layer of moss all over the base. Of course, the final step in making any alien parasite come to life is to add some slime. So, I mixed up some clear craft glue with a couple drops of paint. I tried to cover most areas with a thin layer, letting the extra slime drip down onto the terrain below. And just like that, this alien parasite is complete. Only one thing left to do: sit back and enjoy the final result.